That started it again. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mark's Backyard Birds. We are in spring migration on the tail end of it for us here in Kansas City. And I thought tonight's program, we could certainly talk about this migration because this is a time of year I always get questions from all over of where are my hummingbirds? Where are my orioles? I had them and I don't have them, and I never had them. Why didn't I have them? Some people, I've got tons of them. I never had so many hummingbirds. I get it all, and so I thought we would kind of talk about that overall tonight. So that's the idea. And obviously, we always let people join in, give them time to get logged on here. My name is Mark McKellar. I am the owner of the Backyard Bird Center, a brick and mortar retail shop here in Kansas City, Missouri. So in the heart of the country, right in the middle. And these programs, if you're new joining in with us for the first time, welcome for one thing. And we let you know that when we ask you if you would please, you check in with comments and let us know where you are. That really helps us as far as gauging where the audience is. And also, whenever we're answering questions, if the first person on the night was Denise, and she lives in Washington State, and then during Cincinnati, people from all over. And so it really helps me whenever answering questions and addressing topics to know kind of where my audience is tonight. And I'm going to be doing some polling tonight. I got a little paper here with a little grid on it. So I'm going to be asking for your feelings on how the migration in your area has been via your observations. We're going to talk about the major migrants that people are most interested in, and you're welcome to comment on anything unusual that you've been able to see. So I don't know if you just heard that. That's Sophie, the producer dog, laying down here between Melanie. Say hi, Melanie.
Get over
Melanie's hand, and so we'll see
I
if
can't get over there.
she I could actually do this, couldn't I? Why don't I do that?
Sophie's
Oh, there she is.
Here we go. Say hi.
Say hello, everybody. I had a bath. That's why I look so ragged. All right. Yeah. So welcome in, and we hope everybody is doing well. I've had people ask me, and I'm going to yes. Melanie and I are quite rejuvenated after our vacation, our cruise that we went on. It was really fun, and come back to the spring migration birding, which is always wonderful. I've been out a few times, and it's always my favorite time of the year, spring migration, whenever we're finding birds and things. So we're going to look who's checking in with us and say hi to people. Boy, I got to go away. You guys have been commenting. That's great. All right, Denise, again, I mentioned from Washington State, and we exchanging hellos there. All right, Justin Allenson, call me Marky Mark. He's aging himself, Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. I think you guys may remember that. All right, let's see who else we got here. Oh, yeah, that's my reply. Okay, hi, Ariane. I think you're out in Arizona. Hello, Andrew from Cincinnati, Ohio. Very regular participant. Legend. Looking forward to getting a second. Thank you, Justin. All right. Let's see who else we got here. Oh, hi, Carrie. Manager. Yes, ma'am.
Hand me your phone a second.
Oh, my producer's making requests here. That's good.
Making sure the volume's off.
All right. Boston guy. I know you're from. Exactly. Hi, Lisa, working bulldogs from Ontario, Canada. Thank you very much. And I have been so jealous of the pictures you've been sending in from your trip to Point Pelee. We will be talking about migration, and that's one of the premier spring migration spots for bird watchers in this. And it's just over in to Canada, and it really dips down almost to Ohio, kind of around Ohio there. And what makes that such a great stop? Hi, Kurt. Kurt's right down the street here. He's been on with us. Hello, Marianne. Welcome in. All right. Yes, Andrew Rigg, we appreciate you have been a member for 9 months, and you are a very dedicated follower and contributor. Hello, Keith from Houston, a real regular. Rooster's out here in mid-Missouri. I recognize him. We talk with emails from time to time. All right, let's see. Get called up here. Sylvie Z. Is it a cold spring in Northeast Ohio? Interesting. I know I have a friend who just got back there from Maggie Marsh, the migration there as well, and she's got some dynamite pictures. Said it was incredible. She was up there for a few days. Hello, Rick from North Carolina. Got to admit, it's been hard to come inside tonight. Oh, nice. You see there, again, we're going to put you down as a good hummingbird showing so far this spring. Excellent. Spring Hill, Florida, Marion. Welcome in. That's right. That's it. They let you got to know where you're from. Allie, greetings from Maine. Hello, Jenn G. You've been in with us for a long time. Let's see, my tanager field was chosen as the cover photo of tonight's program. Excellent. Yes, it was. Oh, that having a Scarlet Tanager at a bird feeder. I'm sorry, Jim, but that you know about making people jealous. I mean, I don't. I think maybe once I had a Scarlet at the old house that visited an orange one time, but I hardly ever got Summers a lot, but not Scarlets. They are stunningly beautiful birds. Hello. Oh, okay. To pronounce that, welcome in. All right. Hello from South Jersey. Welcome in. Ontario, Canada. Absolutely. Hi, Shirley from Texas. Welcome in. That's the first time you see it. Usually you just get to see her hand. That's right. Sometimes she leans over far enough to maybe see part of her, but she's pretty camera shy. Hello, Sandy from Kankakee, Illinois. Putting up fences because critters are eating off my flowers. Oh boy. Yes, you gotta deal the bad with the good. It can be quite the challenge. Sue Wilson from Kansas City, welcome in. All right, great. Well, give time to people to get in, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. Sophie's starting to get vocal. You can hear she. Is you jealous? You want to get on camera? No. Our son just walked in upstairs. They heard the footsteps above us.
He would come get her.
Yes, and she knows that somebody's up there, and so hopefully he's going to come get her because
I'm going to go take her.
Yeah. All right, spring migration. What's going on? Let's get into it. The spring migration. Everyone's different. 40 plus years of doing it. And it's amazing how the questions every year are so similar. Now they may come from different areas, and they may come from different topics, but for the bulk of it, most people are always, where are my hummingbirds? That's number one. So that's the first one we're going to get into. Hummingbird migration, this being a black-chinned hummingbird from more to our south and to our west. But he's an example of all hummingbirds, including the ruby-throated, which is so common here in the East. And one of the things I can't speak to this year because someone planned a vacation from the middle of April, late April, into the first week of May, which is an absolute no-no. And I don't think we're ever. The warning is, please don't do that again. For vacations during the peak migration period or the early migration period in the Midwest, because we weren't here, and so it's very hard for me to judge like hummingbird migration, Oriole migration, things like that during that period where I wasn't here to be able to watch and monitor and things going on. But I have all my people who work at the store, Carrie and Ruth and everybody, and they're of course updating me all the time. But of course, you guys are helping us out. So what I'd like to do is go by each kind of the group of birds. And if you would let it chime in with how you feel your hummingbird migration was this year compared to years past. Was it heavier? Was it lighter? Was it about the same? Was it totally bad, or in a judgment call on like that. Because one of the things I hope this will illustrate is in migration, one of the things that really affects the numbers are, of course, is the wind patterns that are coming. So in a year like this, and I think we had here in Kansas City, we had a lot of southwest wind during migration. We had a lot of wind fronts that came through and had winds blowing from the southwestern part of the country up to the northeast. And so a lot of birds in migration get caught in that flow. They can't, I've said before, a little bird that weighs about 6 paper clips in your hand can't fly against the wind. So a lot of these birds, I feel like this year for us, got pushed more to the east. And I think that in the eastern part of the state, over towards St. Louis and that area, I think they had a better migration overall than we had here. So it would be interesting what you guys feel about where you are. So I figure we'd start with hummingbirds. Let's see. Hi, Ruth. Oh, gosh. Let's see. Where are we?
I can't keep up.
Yeah, it's coming fast. That's right. Agnew. Okay, that's how you pronounce that. Oop, oop. Justin, welcome as a new member. We appreciate that. All right. Hello, John Erickson. I'm glad to hear you're still around. Okay, now I caught back up. Now I found my spot. All right. I bet you did have much fun at Point Pelee. The past 3 weeks, man, I'm talking about jealous. All right, here's Justin, who joined as a member. Excellent. That helps support the channel and keeps us going. Bluebird nest and chickadees nest, very exciting. Oh, good. Absolutely, Marty. Yep. We're going to get the bluebirds here in a minute. That's for sure. All right, I plan to keep going. Okay. Other closest by, see the planetary word. Which they're missing? Oh, yes, they do. Yeah, they're cavity nesters there. And you should be able to stake out a good picture. Pelsa, there you go. That clarifies my pronunciation. All right, Mr. Sticks, Bradenton, Florida. Love the shows. All right. All right, here we go. I will give my left arm for you and Melanie to come to my area for a spring migration. I would love to come there. I'm jealous. So Ruth is on. I told you Ruth went up there with a couple of her buddies several years now ago. Just had a blast, and I was always jealous of being out there. Well, hopefully slowing down and being able to travel more is something we certainly really, really plan to do. And Cape May, New Jersey, Hawk Mountain in Pennsylvania, and some of these classic locations are all on my list to want to visit. And Point Pelee is definitely one of those on there. So hopefully one day, Lisa, I'll get up there. But my son's mother-in-law got a great video from feeder camp of Eurasian tree sparrows, adults feeding young at the feeder north of St. Louis. Sandy, absolutely. One of the talk about the place. If you want to find them, you need to go to St. Louis if you want to see a Eurasian tree sparrow. It's amazing how that species has not been so aggressive like its cousin, the English sparrow. Mark on the Merlin Bird ID app next to the bird pictures. What does the big and small
bar mean?
Big and small. All right. I'd have to look at that to make sure. I know the dots beside the names, the color of the dots illustrates the confidence they are in the idea of the call. If they're it's red, if they're not, it's just kind of a guess, and maybe get in orange is maybe doubtful and things like that. I'm not sure about those bars. Totally bum year for the hummingbirds, Mark. I was devastated. All right, Jake, where are you? I'm going to put you down in the area. I've got Kansas City, and I've got north, I've got east, I got south, I got west. So I know the east in North Carolina, I got a good one, a thumbs up from Rick, who said he's got a lot more. So Jake,
I'll see if they can.
Late in arriving, lower numbers. Yeah. Asking carries here, Kansas City, and that's a lot. What we're hearing here is it's not been a good hummingbird migration in our part of the state. We saw our first hummingbird on the season earlier than usual here in southern Maine. Typically, I show up until Mother's Day. Okay. So you had a fairly early one up there. Now we'll put that down as north. All right.
Jake is in Massachusetts.
Okay. Jake's in
He
Massachusetts.
says no luck this year. Oriole
bummer,
set up
no.
shop in the
Okay.
neighborhood. That was new.
All right. We'll put that down. Lighter this year than the last 2 days have been heavy. 5 feeders every 3 days. And I think that is something I've heard too, Rick, this year. Is I've had a lot of people comment they think that maybe a bit later hummingbird migration this year, that birds are showing up, but they're surprised. Some people are almost giving up and taking their hummingbird feeders down, and all of a sudden they've got them out there, and that that can happen. We talk about wind patterns. And if the wind's blowing out of the north, those hummingbirds and other migrants get stuck to the south until the winds can shift and turn out of the north to give them help to get north. So that can very well be the case. 4 right now, Carol. Oh, yeah, better than last year. Okay, to Carol, you got a thumbs up for that. Okay, that's funny because Carol and Jay don't live very far from me, and I've had totally bum luck, and they've had better than last year. So that shows you from just a few miles away. Mark, I'm checking in from about. Hi, Jan. Welcome in. Also late in arriving. You can't see an over. Okay, so that's another down. It's interesting how this is coming together. I appreciate you guys doing this. I've only seen one male ruby throat a few times and one female once. Very slow. All right.
She's in the Illinois.
Yeah, Kankakee, Illinois. Is that north or east, you think?
I think it's north.
Okay, we'll call it north. We'll put you in the north category. So down. All right. That's a rooster. About the same. Okay, I'm going to put that mark there for the Kansas. You're really Kansas City region. You're not too far to my east. Hello from southeast Iowa.
I talked to her on the phone.
Oh, you talked to Melanie on the phone. She just said, love the sauce dish I bought from you. No, absolutely.
It was the
aspect of the best hummingbird feeders, people. I swear by them. All right. So you're very close in kind of this area, the Midwest. So put you down. Hello, Ruth. What's your status? Only one male, but he's been coming almost every morning. Okay, so if he's still coming, maybe he's still in the game. Maybe he's attracting female. You know what happens? And if you watch my last video about where my hummingbirds, I talk about most of this when it comes to whether they stay, of course, is the females, because the male's going to set up his territory. He's going to do his mate attraction, do everything he can to catch those females. But if they decide your yard is not worth nesting in or it's not good, then they move on, and that male has to leave too, because he's got to go somewhere to where he can attract a female and hopefully a harem. With that male still sticking around, you still got a shot, Ruth. That's for sure. Have been using the nectar measuring container a lot. That's good. I love the Nectarade picture. That's my favorite of the. It makes it so quick, so easy. I love it. No hummingbirds, and okay. I'm gonna put you down, John. All right, just a little south of me. Hi from Central Indiana. Not many hummingbirds. Okay, Kathy. There we go. All right, call that east. All right. So hard taking feeders down to make cowbirds go away. How long to do this? That's a tough question. I usually don't have that many cowbirds. I mean, I only have a few. But if you're trying the blackbirds as a whole, some people will take them a week or two. It just depends on if they can find another food source nearby to settle into. If not, they're going to keep coming back and checking on your feeder stations, unfortunately. Jane, I'm in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Okay, got that. Okay. All right. I'm going to put you down. All right. Old and dumb. Makes me gotta go home here. Your advice on Eastern Bluebirds has helped produce 5 healthy baby. Oh, good. I love it. That are 14 days out of the nest and flying all over the backyard. And we only 2 or 3 hummingbirds back so far. All right. Well, that's not bad. So I'm going to put you down as okay there. And good to hear about the bluebirds for sure. I'm glad I could help. That's what drives me to do this, and putting more beautiful birds in the environment. Very little seen here in Kentucky this year, but we have horrible weather since March. Yeah. At the right time, that can really have an effect. So I'm gonna put you down as a down south. Coleman County, Alabama. All right. We're getting ready to move on to the next one. Hummers for weeks, just a few. Yep, Dan, that's the smart thing to do. That's what I did. I did to put mine out empty just in case and try to catch them and come back. Melanie thought for a second she saw one this evening. She said, "Oh, something really fast just flew by." Do curve-billed thrashers use the same nest area? I doubt that. There's not many birds who do that. It's possible, but having not ever lived in Arizona in the desert Southwest, I don't know a lot about curve-billed thrashers as far as their nesting habits and goes, Ariana. Great birds, though. Hummers arrived May 1st for me in Norfolk, Massachusetts. About the same as last year. Okay. That's good to get to know. Yeah, about the same. So I'll put that dash that way.
She's trying to answer about the...
Ariana, do you mean the bar J?
Talking about Merlin app.
All right.
They're talking.
Okay. Yep. Good. Thank you, Sandy, for doing that. Like I said, I don't use the Merlin app very much. I just, a quick listen here and there, sometimes trying to confirm what I thought I heard, etc. Mesa, Arizona. We are lucky. Our hummers. Yeah. Yeah, you guys out west, this is not exactly the topic because most of you, especially the real Southwest, you guys get them all year long down there. Relatively new birder, but I feel like last fall's hurricanes, tree damage, saltwater. Yeah. That environmental conditions. It makes a lot. Blue check mark means it's on your life list already. Okay. Again. Thank you for you guys that use Merlin a lot more than I do. And only one hummingbird sighting about 2 weeks ago in Northwest India. All right, so that's a down. All right. Thank you, John. Absolutely. John's a regular at the store. Been talking with him for years. I have 4 ruby-throated this season. Most I've ever had. All right, Andrew, there you go. That definitely helps. Yeah, I'm gonna put that in there. It's amazing looking at how these check marks have gone up, down, up, down, 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 up. So it just shows you the variety. Prepared that is regular both feeders and the native flowers. Thank you, Kurt, for saying that. Kurt's mentioning the native flowers, and so what I have really talked about a lot with people that come in the store and they're asking about this, I ask them, how many wildflowers do you have in your yard? Do you have a lot of blooming? Because that certainly affects hummingbird numbers at feeders. If you've got a nice, wildflower bed, and you live next to somebody said the other day, they said, I've got a ton of trumpet vine around me. Well, orange tubular flowers are huge favorites of hummingbirds. And so if you've got a lot of native blooming, if the rainfall in your area hits so that the spring wildflowers are doing really, really well, then you're going to have less hummingbirds at your feeders. And that's, I think, a lot of what's going on here. And, and I know, but also the other way, I know Andrew has worked in Cincinnati, has worked very hard at selecting native plants and flowering plants that hummingbirds like. And people who put that extra effort in that way, you make your yard irresistible to hummingbirds rather than just a hummingbird feeder out and not many things that are in bloom in the spring. So that really can affect the numbers that you attract or even have at your feeder. See, white crown sparrows. Yes, white crown, especially in winter down there, you see a ton of white crown sparrows as well as Brewster sparrows. Yeah. Gracious. Yeah, you've got the male or two with harems around there. You must have a decent nesting habitat close by. Funny thing, I'm outside watching your program and the hummingbird just came out. He heard me. He heard me talking about it. His ears were burning. Hi, Bill. We've had a few, but never had many in the spring. Come on. And that's right. And Bill, thank you for that, because that's the other point that I always want to make about hummingbirds. When people come in and they go, I had tons of hummingbirds last year. I don't have any this year. I try to gently ask, or I say, well, how when did you have tons last year? Because for the most part, they're remembering August and September after the babies have fledged and territories have broke down, and you have hummingbirds everywhere. And then you get migration starting and by early August, and then you get those numbers, and that's what a lot of people are thinking about. And then when I go, well, did you have tons in April, or did you have tons in May? And maybe I didn't. So it's one of the things, and I'm gonna have a friend on. We're gonna talk about journaling at one of these lives, and if you keep a bird journal, if you keep records, and whether nesting birds or like your hummingbird arrivals and hatching of bluebirds, things like that, journals can really help you, because then you go, I don't remember, and you go back to last April and you wrote that you didn't have any hummingbirds, but then in July, late July, early on, you had tons. So yes, people's memories, it can be a little skewed by the time of year. We have 2 hummers at our house in Ontario so far. Noticed them for the past 4 days. Excellent. That's about right timing for you guys up north for sure. Put that down. All right. I have 6 feeders, refill 3 to 4 to 3. Oh my, hard to judge how much. Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah. Woodpeckers do have a sweet tooth. That's right. Suck it up. They do. They definitely do. That's somebody was asking about that the other day. Baltimore Orioles are still hanging around here in Illinois. Good. All right, we're going to move on. Thank you. We're with some hanging baskets, fuchsia eggs out. Exactly. Yep. Squirrel eating the begonias. Well, we're going to move on to Orioles. That's the next bird of topic. And I'll try to get Melanie kind of write down some notes here as far as if I haven't got to on that. But the other part of the most popular spring migrant that we look forward to every spring, and especially in the eastern 2/3, I know you guys out west have the bullocks, but Orioles have become such a popular bird in the areas, and get a lot of complaints if they're not in. And if you watch my Oriole programs in the past, I definitely talk about the state of blooming whenever Orioles get here. And early on, it looked like in our area, it was going to be a late bloom. And then boom, we had a warm snap. And when we went on our cruise, evidently all the black locust trees in the world bloomed, because when we came back, it was just walls of white down some major roads here in town where they have lots of black locusts. And I've always said, it's hard to compete against Mother Nature. And not only do they eat the nectar and the petals, they'll eat the petals of things like that, but also the insects that attack those blooms in the spring. And it's hard. And when you've got that kind of competition from nature, the Oriole feeders are not going to be as heavy. And I know that I have had many reports here at the store that their Orioles were almost non-existent this year at their feeders. Now I've had a few say I've got a ton. Again, it's amazing, and it can have a lot to do with what your tree composition is in your yard or close to your yard. If there are trees that are not flowering and don't have a lot of insects, then your numbers can be down. So just wondering about how that on the rest of the country. Okay, you guys are talking. We haven't. Yeah. Honeysuckle vines and bloom. Hummingbirds are visiting like crazy. Cole Smith, I've had a very few hummingbirds. You've been taking notes here. I'm sorry.
I'm trying.
Thank you. Keep up. Try to keep up, anyways. All right. Okay. I added a Kufia and 2 super, I don't know what all that is. Oh, something ate them. Gamble's quail everywhere out there, and lots of doves and pigeons in Arizona.
And then she said I have lots of homers.
All right, Mary had a couple of orioles now also gone. Again, remember, many orioles, depending on where you are, especially here in the Midwest and the South, we get a lot of orioles more that move through than actually stay in nests. We do have nesting Baltimores and orchard, but we have a lot that pass right on through. Spent probably native flowers in my yard. Yes, Andrew has invested heavily in creating a bird paradise. Considering buying a bird feeder because I'm getting really hot out there and for birds in the Southern California. Yeah, Frontier in SoCal definitely provide water. If you're not, make sure if you got a bubbler or a mister, something like that going, that will be absolutely beneficial to you down there. Our black-headed grosbeak, yes. Butlerbackers are neotropic migrants, and they nest mainly in higher elevations. So they come through in the western states, but spend the winter in the tropics. All right, mid-Missouri, first year putting out an Oriole nectar. No Orioles yet. Yep. All right. No, also got, yeah, okay. No Orioles yet. Good. All right, let's see. Just
Jenn G.
They love coral honeysuckle. Yep. All right, Jen. Yeah.
I don't know where she is.
Yep. She's in Maine.
Maine. Okay.
Yep. Okay. Yep. All right. Question. If rainwater's down the feeder, does it make it affect? Yes, absolutely, Zach. I tell the story of this huge hummingbird location here in mid-Missouri that it's incredible. The guy has hummingbird, like 15 hummingbird feeders hanging from a big oak tree, and it's in the Ozarks where there's tons of hummingbirds anywhere. And he'll tell you that he'll average in a day about 100 hummingbirds visiting those feeders, ruby threads. He said, but on a day right before a thunderstorm rolls in, he said it's like 300 hummingbirds come in and they're feeding like crazy. And part of that, of course, is that they know that a good heavy rain is going to wash out some of the nectar of those flowers, and it's going to be less. They're not going to get as much right after a rain, and so they hit those hummingbird feeders really, really hard. So yes, if it dilutes your nectar and your sugar water in your hummingbird feeder, definitely need to replace it quickly. All right, that's Baltimore's one orchard. How Baltimore is right because males were battling. Yes, and that they do get to be territorial. They'll chase each other around. Same numbers as last year. Okay, Carol and Jay have.
Yep, got that.
Yep, got that. Onalaska, Wisconsin. Great Oriole season so far. That's good to hear. Up north of us. That's good to hear. Yeah, they're up there in Wisconsin having a good year. Lisa has them nesting nearby, she's sure. Yep. And a lot of people, when it comes to nesting, if you have the Orioles that nest in your area and nothing changes, the trees aren't cut down, they don't do a development near you, whatever, they will return and nest usually year after year. Mockingbird friends, I'm not sure how to talk about that. I had my first Oriole in April for 10 minutes. He was at Oranges and Jellies. I'm here in Spring Hill, Florida. Excellent. All right, Florida. Have at least 3 male Baltimore Orioles and 2 or 3. That's good. That's good numbers, Jim. North. Jim, where are you?
Jim K.
Jim K. Are you Tennessee? I'm trying to remember. I must have missed it. Yes, absolutely. And that's something that I talk about. Now is the time to really try to transition those Orioles off of jelly or away from jelly and onto mealworms, because they're in the heart of the nesting now. They've built their nest, they're starting to lay eggs, and if you train them that you provide mealworms for them that they can feed their young, and that will benefit. So some people, like if their Oriole feeder has 4 jelly cups, they do it and they only put jelly in 2 of them, and then they put mealworms in the other 2. and even suet nuggets and the other, and then try to transition those orioles into a food that is much more nutritionally valuable for the adults and for the young, especially. All right, saw my first oriole today. He was trying to drink out of the saucer hummingbird. Yes, that's how it started. They were drinking out of hummingbird feeders.
She said, do we have oriole feeders? Yes, we do.
Melanie will be putting a link up for you here really soon. Yes, raccoons are your number one enemy when it comes to jelly and sugar water. So if you don't have a way to hang those nectar feeders or jelly feeders where the raccoons can't get to them, like under the eave of your house in front of a big picture window, I recommend putting them away at night. If you have a gas grill on your deck, grab it, put it in the gas grill at night. Next morning, get up and hang it back out, or bring it in and put it in your sink. That helps to discourage those. But yes, they love sugar water. Until you get them again come fall. That works my first time in the Oriole feeder. Yes. For you guys down in Florida, Orioles just pass through, and they don't stay very long up north on their nesting territories. They start heading back south in late July and passing south, and they slowly work their way south. And you may have them actually winter, down there in Florida. All right, Jim, yeah, he's in Minneapolis. Jim's
I got it.
You got it? Okay. All right.
Oh, she's in Arizona. So
Yeah,
it's hot.
I have a whole video, Ariana. Look it up. How birds keep cool. That's a video on there. I'll put a link in it for you if I can. Yeah, they fluff their feathers. They pant. They of course, water's the key. Providing water for them. No orchards yet. 4 days of Baltimore's on this week. Then I had a female or two. Good. You still got them passing through. More than I can say here. Hi, James. Welcome in. Still have not seen one. Grape jelly. Yeah. I know. And you have got Oriole paradise, James. You have really created it.
About our neighbor has them and we don't.
Yeah. I mean, I get literally a diagonal from us. I can see the back of their house, and she hasn't come into her house. And I'm just up, I don't know, 150 yards, maybe 200 yards, and I've never had them come to my feeders. It's crazy. It's never had Orioles on my farm. Sure, several feeders out. Keep trying.
Don't have at least 3 nesting pairs.
That's excellent. Yeah.
Where is he? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know where you are, Andy. Just curious. We'll put you down. Oriole feeders. Melanie put the link in. All right. We're going to move on to the next birds. I don't have Orioles, but was told to put out jelly. If hummingbirds are in the yard, they cannot metabolize it, and it could be fatal. There's a lot of stuff out there on the internet, folks. And, hummingbirds will lick jelly. They will lick sap from trees. They will lick the nectar from an orange. They mainly eat insects, and they're mainly going to eat the flower nectar that's all around them. Remember, for some reason, people are convinced that birds only get their food from your bird feeders, and that can't be further from the truth. Less than 15% of a daily diet of a bird is from bird feeders. And they're diversifying their diet, nutritional values, insects, everything. And people put this stuff out there on the internet about, this could be fatal. I remember there was one a few years ago that don't feed hummingbirds and hummingbird feeders because they break their bills off in hummingbird feeders. It's ridiculous. But they put it out there on the internet, folks. And people, somebody said, my friend said this, or now, then all of a sudden it becomes reality. But it just makes me crazy. I'm sorry. That's one of the reasons why I do what I do, is to try to straighten it out. All right, we're going to go. We're going to add a new bird, the tanagers. We've already had a couple mentioned. The tanagers, summers, and scarlets, which was the cover photo bird of the night. They eat from oranges and jelly feeders, but only briefly, folks. And again, when we're talking about Oriole feeders and putting out jelly for them and putting out citrus for them, it really is a pretty short-lived thing for most of us. The birds that are passing through, and most of these birds, once they have babies, they're eating insects. I mean, tanagers, summer tanagers are great bee catchers and wasp catchers, and they eat and they rub the stingers out on limbs and they consume a lot of them. But don't be fooled into thinking that your feeders are the only food that these birds are getting from you. But this year we've seen quite a few tanagers in the area on our bird hikes, which they're out in where the woods where they're supposed to be. But as far as that feeders, I haven't had a ton of reports. I just wonder if you guys have had any of those. And and again, of course, it comes with brown thrashers that will come to the nectar feeders and the jelly feeders, and the gray catbirds and things like that. So you can, if you've got any of those that have been showing up, and that's interesting too. Okay, Andy's in northern Michigan. I don't know if you saw that.
Yes, I got it.
Okay.
And now we're on to tanagers.
Yes, that is true. Do not use artificial sweeteners, and this is true of hummingbird nectar and definitely in jelly. We recommend natural jellies, and that is with natural sugars only, no high fructose corn syrup. We do not recommend that, and definitely would not any with artificial sweeteners at all. Never use honey. Never use brown sugar. Never use powdered sugars, confectionery sugars. Just use regular cane sugar. And again, I know people that have them nesting in their yard. Those adults are going to come down. They're going to get jelly, and they're going to get a sugar hit, and they're going to keep going. But they're up there gathering caterpillars and bugs, and they're taking those to the young, and that nutritional value they need. That's why we encourage that switching off to mealworms. Thank you for that, Zach. That was great. Missed you guys. Well, we did. Yeah. Yep. Great catbirds on your jelly. That's good. Yep. Chickadees are growing fast. House wrens. Oh, that's sad to hear about the house wren failed. Good to know. It's right about a brick. Yes. I'm sorry. Again, people put stuff out on the internet and look at the source. I know they'll claim to be part of some group somewhere and things. And oh well, if your hummingbird is feeding, well, hummingbirds don't typically put their bills well in the feeders very much. They usually just put it at the tip, and they use their tongue to lick in. And the thing was, but the wind blows and it blows them and it snaps their beak and bill in half. If it's happened, I'm telling you folks, that's extremely rare. And that falls under the category of anything can happen. And think of all the hummingbirds that have benefited from hummingbird feeders versus somebody recorded this once, 50 years ago. I don't know. All right, let's see.
We got a lot more birds to do.
Yes, we got to keep going. All right, let's get going. Let's go. Indigo buntings. I've had a few people, luckily, have them coming in and feeding with their finches and coming to feeders, as well as the lazuli or lazuli bunting for you guys in the West. They're not as common at feeders, the birds that but in spring migration, that's when you're going to get them. And one of the biggest frustration for folks with those is they can't get them to keep coming. Again, another bird that when they come in and it's cool and there's not a lot of natural food yet, they take advantage of feeders. And then they move out and do what they're supposed to in nature. And it's frustrating. I wish I could figure out how to get these birds to eat at feeders the whole time. That's all about summer. I'm jealous. Westerns, what?
Tell people that if they're watching on the replay or they don't, to make sure they comment, because we can still.
We'll still do tracking. If you're watching this on the replay, and as Melanie just said, please let us know. Still keep commenting because we'll still record this information. Absolutely. And Frontier Southern California. Just seen one of them in my water is the key. I'm Captain Water, folks. Wow, tanagers, I would love that. My puck device is picking up a pileated 5 recordings today. Ooh, they're vocal. They're close by. Again, it's a bird that's not easy to get to come to feeders, James. But the tanagers, if you got catbirds coming, I would believe a tanager would come in every once in a while. Remember, the females are yellow. New Jersey. Hello, Alyssa. Where do tanagers typically sing from? Like under the tree can? Yes, the tanagers are typically upper. level of the canopy, and usually they're singing up in there. Maybe not tree top, but in that upper part of the canopy is where we see them most of the time. Every once in a while, you'll see them down lower, and you can get good pictures. That's wonderful, but most of the time they're up. That's interesting, Sandy, that you don't have the tanagers there. I wonder if that's tree composition where you are, maybe. I don't know. Because, the tanagers at feeders here tend to be pretty good. Mid-Missouri, never seen a tanager. Okay, all right, the tanagers. Yes, James is a big supporter of the online store. Thank you, James. It's a great plug. Remember, when we're talking about the online store helps supports these videos. I mean, and we appreciate the support and with birdseed, great the jelly, the birdberry jelly that he's talking about, just supplies in general. The supporting the videos, the memberships, giving us a like. Thumbs up, shares, those kind of things, all that helps promote the channel, and we really appreciate it. And the online store sales keep us going. And Carrie packages everything with tender loving care, and you'll get a nice little note. Thank you on there. I've never had a tanager. I do have a lot of catbirds every year, all summer. I love them. They are so fun to watch. Yes, they are. They're great birds. Yeah, the tanagers, again, that's going to be that short-lived when they first get back. They're going to hit that jelly and hit some oranges. There were years in my old house where we lived for 15 years that some springs I had more tanagers at my feeders in the spring than I did orioles. And tree composition, I don't know. We've seen a summer tanager at both seed and jelly. Yep. Yeah, both scarlet and summer pairs in our year. Two beautiful birds. And remember, they are a lot like the bluebirds, which we're going to talk about here in just a second, that they have to have hulless seed. So they're going to sunflower hearts, sunflower medium kernels, peanut pieces, things like that. These insect-eating birds, that they have to have that hulless seed for them to be able to swallow it and digest it. The seed coats on them, they don't have the ability to crack them open. So a catbird, yep, every year. I think I love this. I love catbirds. Only had 3 or 4 last week. Okay, Ruth. Okay, whoa, what are we doing here? I'm kind of blocked. All right, so I promised that we were going to, another bird that has gotten a lot of attention in the spring, especially over the last several years, are the rose-breasted grosbeaks, but also blue grosbeaks, and like they were talking about, and out west, the black-headed grosbeak, which is a western counterpart to the rose-breasted grosbeak, and they have really become very popular at seed feeders in the spring when they're moving through. And in our area, they do nest here, but not in any big numbers. But you guys up Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota, up to the north of us, you have a lot more rose-breasted grosbeaks nesting up there. And it is, of course, just a cousin to the cardinal. I jokingly call cardinals red-crested grosbeaks when we're out. But they are in the same family, same group of birds. But the males are stunning, and they really, really garner a lot of attention from people who have fed birds for a long time. And they look out there and they go, "Oh my gosh, what's that bird at my feeder?" And this again, us being out of town, our friend who was taking care of the dog while we were gone said one morning we had 4 males on the feeders, a safflower feeder outside, and she said she never saw them again after that. Just those 4 males that one morning, and that was it. So we're definitely down, and consider that for the grosbeaks this year. Never had an indigo. Yeah. Indigos are the ones we've been talking about. Indigos are probably the least common at feeders, but really a great show. No indigos there in Kankakee. Okay. It's great summer birds to watch for. I loaded all those species into my bird. Excellent. Yeah, that's good. Yep. They having those in there, and if we've got them here, you pretty much have them in New Jersey too.
I think is he talking about the list that we put in that one video?
The most beautiful birds. Yeah, I think that's the video he's talking about.
It should be in there if somebody.
I know they're not really a backyard bird, but can you touch on the Kirtland's warbler? It's on my life list. Lisa, Yeah, that's Kirtland's warbler is a very specialized bird that is its breeding territory is really confined in Michigan to an area of jack pines up there. For they have to manage it really to keep it suitable nesting habitat for them, and they do control of brown-headed cowbirds up there because of the parasitism. And my friend Marky Bird Girl worked a summer intern job up there when she was in college, and got to know him really, really well. As a migrant through, especially the eastern third of the country, I think they winter mainly down in the Caribbean and areas like that, and that coming through pretty uncommon. So, the Kirtland is a very specialized bird, and either as a bird you're either a specialist or a generalist. And as for Kirtlands, they are truly a specialist bird, which makes them more vulnerable to changes in the environment and things. So I'm glad you got it on your life list. I do not. I've never been up there to make that pilgrimage. It's just like the golden cheek warbler that's only down in Texas. I got to make trips to get those birds on my life list because I just not going to get them without it. So great bird. I had a couple indigos. Yeah, toy. Yes. One other thing, and you're right, indigo buntings are in no ways rare. They are very common birds, actually. And if you learn their songs, you will hear them. I mean, they are all in semi-open places, like in a forest where there's an opening, maybe a big tree fell and created an opening in the woods. The indigos love that kind of an area. And around the edges of pastures and fields, especially native prairies and things like that, you get lots of indigos. We hear them all the time on our bird hikes, but at feeders, not as easy to find, not as easy to see. Have you ever seen a piebald robin? Yes. Yeah. Yep. I mean, that's just melanism. I mean, listen to me. That's dark. No, leucism, which patches of white and different places. And we see it in the more common birds. And robins are certainly a more common bird. House sparrows, we see it in a lot. Blackbirds, we see leucism in a lot. And of course, it turns up genetically, it can turn up in just about any bird. But yeah, I definitely have seen robins with leucism. I'm close to Michigan where they nest. Yeah, it's possible. We had one in Tower Grove Park in St. Louis, which is a migrant trap in the city there a few years ago. One of the big birders over on the St. Louis side was able to photograph a Kirtland's moving through there. So it would be hard, I would think, on Point Pelee. I think you have to make that pilgrimage, to see it for sure. All right. Make my water fountains. All the birds love them. Yeah, absolutely. Water is the key. You're right. Yes, you bet you have. In your yard out there, Carol, you've got a great yard for them. Now I have 4 birdhouses, 2 chickadees, and 3, yes, Downy, hoping the bluebirds, but Mark waited 6 years. That's very true. At our old house, I had a bluebird box up for 6 years, chickadees nesting in it, and had to keep the sparrows at bay. And finally, the bluebirds moved in. Be patient. A lot of mature maple trees around in that neighborhood. I ought to get maybe one tanager out in the forest in the spring. Boy, Sandy, come to Kansas City in spring for a bird hike with me. I will show you tanagers. There's no doubt about it. We have good numbers of tanagers. A couple of the really old timber areas that we go to. One place called Weston Bend State Park, and both Summers and Scarlets are pretty common in those woods. I had 3 or 4 indigos last week, but nothing since. Just a couple this year. My parents had numerous rose-breasted grosbeaks this year. And they're east of us, right, Kurt? That's good to hear. Any birds you're talking about, but watching Carlos coming to my. Well, you have a grosbeak coming. You have a red grosbeak. That's right, Ellie. All right, we got to get to our last few birds. The recent American goldfinch. Yeah, goldfinches come and go in the spring. They don't nest till July, and they'll go when there's natural food. They'll come back in good numbers. I had a pretty good influx this afternoon at the feeders, and we've been talking sporadically about bluebirds. Yes, Kurt, this is your picture in your yard a couple of years ago, I think. mama feeding one of the babies, the live mealworms. The bluebird numbers I've heard again mixed. I've heard people complaining that they've had bluebird for years, and all of a sudden they didn't come this year. Lots of reasons why this could be true. So hopefully you guys are having luck. I know James, I know you've been accounting for your nest boxes and what's going on, and that if you keep trying, they will come. And you keep the habitat right. No one, so only once this year. Yeah, I think rosebreast is, again, they're petal lovers. They'll eat the petals off of flowers that are blooming, and they also insects and things like that. So I think natural food really hurt us. And I think rosebreast is maybe one of those birds that got pushed to our east in migration more than here. So she does pack everything very, very well. I literally have a flock of rosebreasts has decided to call it home here for this year. That's nice. Yeah. Sure. How many there? I tell story. We spent a week up in Wisconsin vacation with a family a few years ago, and I got up every morning and went out walking, and I couldn't believe how many rosebreasts and grosbeaks I was hearing every morning. I walked through this, and it's a nice wooded area where we were staying in, and it definitely made an impact on me how much more they have nesting up there for sure. All right, two birds I want to ask about. Literally have this bird, James' picture here of this Carolina wren. We had a really rough winter in January and February, and it has a real harsh impact on Carolina wrens and in our area and northern mockingbirds. And one of the things we've been really keen on listening for on these bird hikes this spring is how many Carolina wrens we're hearing in the woods and in all these nature areas that we bird every year. And we have certainly heard a lot less, a lot fewer Carolina wrens singing. And it's amazing that in the neighborhoods, we've had just basically kind of normal amounts. And it always is that Captain Water in me that unfrozen water provided for these birds in winter is such a huge, huge difference maker for them. And I'm wondering, I know in the deep South, they don't have to worry about the frozen conditions hardly at all. But in the Northeast and all across the northern tier states where these birds have been expanding into, I hope you've been continuing to hear them, but it's definitely tough. So let's see. Do you know where I was? Yeah. Rosebreast grapes were plentiful for 3 weeks. We moved out. Yep, that's classic. Male and female rosebreast for about 2 weeks. Yep, that's what's happening. They move through. They go to further nesting.
You go down to the bottom. Kurt says they have a pair of Carolina wrens.
Yes, you got. Yeah. Oh, now. Yep, the verdins. I call them the desert chickadees out west. We don't get those here. They're great little birds. Had an adult Carolina wren feeding young one this morning. Good. They successfully nested. Pair of Carolina wrens. Yep.
Where is that?
Here, Carol. That's
okay.
Platte City. 7 eggs. Do they decide based on food availability? Most trees around. Yeah, they do. I mean, the insects are the most important thing. We talk about, and yes, I had a special request. And yes, I'm going to have the plant lady on again. Maybe in a couple of weeks, we're putting together a native plant program and trees and shrubs and wildflowers we recommend to help your birds. And a lot of it, I know we talk about oak trees, how oak trees are the most important tree there is when it comes to birds. They have hundreds and hundreds, the caterpillars on one tree, the number of species of insects that lay their eggs that hatch on oak trees is amazing. They're the supermarket of the forest for birds and nesting birds, and chickadees. They are going to nest where they have availability to those kind of caterpillars because it takes hundreds and hundreds of caterpillars to raise baby chickadees, and they don't feed their baby seeds. The chickadee's not going to come and grab a sunflower seed and stuff it in their baby's mouth. No, they have to have those insects. So if they're choosing to nest close to you, that means that your habitat's good enough for them, and they they're and that's basically due on to the availability of natural foods, insects, caterpillars, things like that. All right. Dove cages. Yeah, don't feed safflower. And you look up on our website, we have dove guards for a lot of feeders. And for you guys that live in the South and the Southwest, it's almost a must in a lot of areas. Second bluebird nest in progress. Excellent. Just on schedule. They're right on time. Same. Interesting. About the same in the woodlands near you, Sandy. That's good. That's good to hear. Yeah, we have been really down this year. Of course, our January and February were just absolutely brutal here. I had to take advantage of my roosting pockets. Yes, another great addition to your yard for them. All right. A big cage feeder last night. Yes. Cage feeders keep the doves out, and not as many, and the grackle as well. Doves and pigeons, they can't get into them, and it's sad. But especially during this time of season, we call it during the grackle season. Cage feeders, that's when we sell them because they'll hoard your feeders for sure. All right, excellent. Yep, Melanie just posted a link to the dove guards. You're very welcome. Thank you for Hunter. It means a lot that you guys are getting something from what the teachings are, because we love it, and we want to do right by the birds, and you guys are obviously dedicated to your birds and your yards, and you're wanting to do the right things. We really appreciate that, and your birds appreciate that. Absolutely. All right, let's wind down. Like I said, I knew we were going to spend a lot of time on hummingbirds and orioles because those are the most popular, but I wanted to get a feel for what you guys were saying on that. And then we're going to go through the comments. I know we didn't get to everybody because it was coming fast and furious there. We appreciate it. Melanie was doing her best to keep up, and but we're going to go back through the comments and try to make further notes, because I really want to take a look at that. Remember, wind patterns. There's the state of blooming in your area. Has you've had a development around you. Your yard and your houses right next to you may be just like they've always been, but they may have cleared out a patch of woods nearby, and that affects bird populations tremendously. They have to move to a different area, and those are the birds that may have been visiting you and things like that. So habitat destruction is a terrible thing, but we know it's part of life, unfortunately, and part of death for birds. So support conservation groups. It's they do protect tracts of timber and areas that are good for wildlife, native prairies. All those kind of pieces of habitat are really important, especially for migrating birds. So, all right, thanks, guys. Thank you, Frontier. Thanks for joining in, you guys. Thank you for spending part of your night with us. Dried mealworms, so I believe it. All right. I am a well-known murderer around here, and I quote you, Mark, at least once. Well, thank you, Sandy. I appreciate that. You guys, like I said, I gain knowledge from you guys. You guys are really, you're my eyes and ears for your part of the world, and you keep me informed. And Sandy, I appreciate all the pictures you send and post for me. You guys, if you're photographers, these pictures that you see every night, I 90% of the pictures I use are from customers who send me pictures to use. Really appreciate it. It helps to help do these programs.
There was a question from Rick about recommending a mister or a warbler.
All right, where are we here? Okay, thank you, Carol. Rick, would you recommend a mister or a bubbler? Well, for most, I think bubblers as a whole will get more attention. It'll a magnet for more birds and a lot of usage, especially if it's in a nice open water feature so that it can spread out. But the bubbler, I like this. The mister is much more for hummingbirds and other birds, but you get a lot of spray and waste, I think of it, when it comes to misters, but they're great and I love them. But overall, if I had to choose, I would install a bubbler.
And I posted a link so you can see it.
It was fun learning. Absolutely. You're welcome. Thank you for tuning in. It makes it worth it. I tell you guys. Should have about 2 weeks ago as usual. All right. There's Denise commenting there. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Carol.
Ellie's.
We got what?
Go to Ellie's, because she always reminds us.
Up. Thank you, Ellie. A reminder to hit the like button, the thumbs up. We appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed, it really makes a difference, folks. If you hit subscribe and turn on that notification. I have put that question every so often is, how do I know you're going to be on? I didn't know you were on tonight. When you subscribe, there's the notification bell. And if you click that, it will send you a notification as to when I'm on. Going to be on.
And
so
I'm trying to do better at posting it on Facebook and sending an email
and
putting it on the website.
You hear Melanie over here? I don't know if you can, but she said she is really trying to do better about posting notifications on Facebook and other social media platforms to let you know that we're going to be on. So you
and the calendar on the website.
And the calendar on the website. There you go.
Yeah, I've been trying to.
Thank you. I'm glad you did too. Excellent. I know you guys out west. It's pretty early in the evening. So, yay! Did you hit the thumbs up button, Ruth? Thank you. Sophie is a beautiful gal. She really is.
Did you tell them we had a milestone this week?
What?
The 18,000 milestone.
Oh, that's right. Milestone this week for the channel, 18,000 subscribers. We topped yesterday, I think, maybe the day before. So yeah, thank you all. I mean, it's huge. I never would have imagined we had that many people interested to hear about birds, but I love it. There's the bubbler link. I think the copper disc is a game changer, Rick. I thought when I first saw it, I went, yeah, well, yeah, and boy, I am a true believer in that copper disc keeping the algae down. There you go. There's another testimonial to it. All right, guys, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back on in a couple of weeks. Like I said, I'm going to try to make it arrange it that Mary's on again talking about plants and to help you attract more birds to your yard and native vegetation. So, again, thanks so much. And keep up watching the videos. I'll keep posting them. And you guys keep supporting us, and we're going to keep this thing rolling. Thanks so much. Have a good evening, everybody.